was something. Now, before anyone worries, this is going to be a spoiler-free Speed Impressions. I will do a spoiler Wolfkeen's thoughts later down the line on my thoughts on the movie. But to give what I can without spoiling anything, I'm very conflicted about this movie. Unfortunately, this movie did not do a good job at convincing me that this needed to exist, and it played it very safe in a lot of areas. But let's get into what I can talk about. So the movie begins with Twilight basically running a friendship festival. And, well, being a movie, it got interrupted by a group that represents the Storm King. So basically what the Storm King wants to do is that he wants to gain the power of the 4 princesses and become more powerful, and I'm pretty sure you all know where this comes from. I know someone might say that's a spoiler, but it's really not. It happens at within the first 15 minutes of the movie, so I can at least say that. So basically, the main 6 have to go on this adventure to try to find help to take on the Storm King, and this leads to them going on an adventure outside of Equestria, and yeah, it leads to some interesting locales. Like, they go to like different areas outside of Equestria, they see like different kinds of races and otherwise. I really like the world development that they did with this movie. Like, I love the world that they expanded upon, the different kinds of races and otherwise that we get to see, and this led to us meeting some interesting characters. In fact, one of the villain characters is one of my favorite characters of this movie. Can't say much, but they do delve more into this character's backstory and otherwise later on down the line, and man, do I love it. Another thing that I want to say that goes along with the world building is the different animation and art style that they went with. Very gutsy and very bold move to use a different animation and art style for this movie, but it worked in its favor. Because of the different art style and animation, it played to the movie's strength and allowed it to basically visualize the kind of emotion and otherwise they wanted to get out, as well as make the world feel more alive than ever before. Now, I know you're about to say I'm saying a lot of positives, and yeah, there are some positives to this movie. Like I said, world building was good, characters were good, animation was good, and not to mention the humor was pretty spot on. But the biggest problem I have with this movie, very simply put, is story. Its story is very samey, it's very safe, and it feels like something that we've seen before in an episode, which I can't go into until later down the line, but just to say right now, that synopsis that I gave you at the very beginning, I'm pretty sure that reminded ya of a certain season finale. Put that in perspective for a few minutes. Not to mention, the songs weren't all that great in this movie, but then again, songs do not factor into our overall enjoyment, so I'm not going to count it here, but I will say only 1, maybe 2 songs I liked out of the entire 6 that they gave us. And yeah, that's pretty much me summarizing the movie without spoiling anything. I mean, we got good characters, we got world building, we got different races we got to see. The animation and art was really good. The humor was on point. The biggest problem that I have with this movie was its story. It felt like it was playing it way too safe, and it didn't take too many risks. It did take a few, which I think paid off, but it took others that I don't think did. And that's where I keep saying that it contrasts with the show itself, unfortunately. So all in all, what do I think about the My Little Pony movie? Honestly, I don't think it doesn't justify itself. I don't think it's a bad movie per se. I enjoyed my time with it. I'm glad that I got to see it, and I'm glad that it happened. I'm glad that it exists now. But the biggest problem I have with this movie is that it doesn't justify its reason for existing. Like, it feels like it's just there. Like, I don't have a good example of how to present this, but think of like a book that just got released to a series that you love and know, and it doesn't do enough to justify it being around. That's kind of how I feel about the movie. It doesn't do enough to justify its existence, and if you watched my previous video, that was my biggest concern with the movie. So yeah, what do I think about the My Little Pony movie? I'm very conflicted on it, and I don't feel like it justifies its existence. Wow, it doesn't justify its existence. Would I recommend this movie? Yeah, if you're a My Little Pony fan, definitely go watch it. I'd say it's worth it just for a single watch. But if you're not a My Little Pony fan, or have been very skittish or standoffish towards the show or license itself, you can easily skip this and not miss anything, because like I said, this movie doesn't justify its existence, unfortunately, and that makes me very sad. But I still had a good time with it, so take that with a grain of salt. And that's my speed impressions on the My Little Pony movie.